Boom, I'm in the room. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Everyday Conversations Regarding Mental Health. So much. It's always something kicking off. I had two guests coming on tonight. There appears to be a little bit of a drama. I've not heard from them, not sure what's going on, not sure whether they missed a call or the internet's down. I've had a call from my neighbours. Their internet's not playing the game at the moment, so not quite sure what's occurring. Hopefully I'm going out, hopefully you're getting this. So what's going on tonight? Because there's nothing on the telly, that's why you're here. And I'm coming to you live from the old Hill Manor. So tonight, what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep it fairly short, I think. But tonight I'm going to talk about, obviously we had the live awesome pub quiz on a Tuesday. That's over on the quiz channel. And to find that, just type in live awesome pub quiz and you should find it. We go live every week at 8 o'clock. Myself and the Duchess, or the Duchess and myself, Lord Hill, we present the quiz. She compiles all the quizzes and they're a lot of fun. So there you go. However, this channel, or this part of the channel, is all about mental health, mental well-being, and taking the stigma out of mental health issues, and trying to encourage people to talk about their well-being and their problems. Quite often we can help just by talking. So what I thought, this one I've had in the sort of the back of my mind for this sort of occasion when my guests don't turn to. So I'm going to talk about my issues. I've got one or two. That's how come I got around to talking about it. So if this is your first time here, please pop in the comments, let me know where you're watching from. And don't forget to smash the old like button. Oh no, sorry, done it again. Forgot, I changed the scene and hadn't unlocked the sound. Take it, there is sound now. So I've been waffling on for a few minutes. Anyway, the long and the short story is the rest of that tour of Northern Ireland in 77 was pretty rough, and it did have an effect on me years later. Did you have no sound? Yeah, it was my fault. Absolutely my fault. There is sound now, trust me. I can see the sound now. So just reiterate, what I was talking about tonight is some of my issues and some of the problems that I've suffered over the years. So that was 77, and a lot happened on that. I saw my first dead body, saw mates being injured and stuff like that. Quite a few minutes. Again, I don't want to go back over it. I'll move on. So over the years, particularly the last 20 odd years, but I did another tour of Northern Ireland in 80 to 82, and another fairly sort of busy 2 years. We were resident battalion up in Londonderry, and a few things happened on that one that affected me in later years and at the time, really. Back then things weren't dealt with like they do nowadays. Anyway, so moving on, I missed out on the first Gulf War. We were in Northern Ireland for the Falklands, so we missed that as well. And then I had a little bit of a break, and then I'd gone to the reserves, and in the reserves I transferred into a unit called 15 UK Psychological Operations Group. And when I got recruited onto the group, the commander says, if we take you onto the group, would you be prepared to deploy out if the need arose? I thought, yeah, of course I would. Not thinking that it would, but it did. My first, I've been on the group for about 6 months, and I found myself being deployed to Kosovo in the back end of 1999. And then I ended up doing 2 tours of Kosovo back to back. So that was me. I saw quite a lot of horrors on that tour. I visited some of the mass graves as part of my job, and yeah, that has a little bit of that can play on your mind a little bit. You see some of the stuff what people can do to other people, it just beggars belief sometimes. Then 18 months later, I deployed out to Macedonia. Macedonia was a funny one. We were doing a weapons collection, and during that tour 9/11 happened. So that was about the only notable thing on the tour. I mean, I was up in the mountains a couple of times with the paras, collecting in weapons, getting imagery and stuff like that. That was fine. 5 months later, in back end of January 2002, I found myself flying into Kabul. And bitterly cold. That 6 months I spent in Kabul, I came out on the 20th of June when we handed over to the Turks. The Turks took the lead, particularly in our discipline, which is PSYOPs. They took over the work that we started, basically. And I was pleased when I went back in 2006 that they'd carried on that work, and it carried on from 2002 to 2006 in the same format that we'd put together, which was great. That tour was great. It was for us at that time. It was fairly benign. There wasn't a lot of horrors that went on. 2006 was a different barrel of monkeys altogether. In fact, just to take you back, late 2004, early 5, I went to Iraq. I was based out of the airpod in Basra, and I spent a lot of time bouncing around southern Iraq, visiting police stations, police chiefs and stuff like that. It wasn't a great job, and so not hiding to nowhere. But 3/4 of the way through that tour, I got a call on I think it was a Friday afternoon, to go and see the Padre. Well, that's weird. Never had a Padre wanting to see me before. Anyway, called me in, told me that my wife at the time, Sandra, had been diagnosed with cancer, and she started a treatment on the Monday. I'm going home. So that was the worst 24 hours of my life. Getting me from Basra back to the UK, and I was home on a Saturday afternoon. Awful weekend. And the Monday we turned up at a wooden spoon unit in Aylesbury, and I spent the next 6 months going through the treatment with her, and it was awful. Really awful. At the end of that, they said, if you're clear for 2 years, you'll be fine. Year and 11 months later, it came back. She didn't last long. She died on the 10th of November 2006. I didn't cope with it particularly well. I was earmarked to go back to Afghanistan, and I ended up going back to Afghanistan in, I think it was February of 2007. And I didn't really deal with it. The grieving process. It went on the back burner. At the time, Sarah, Sandra's daughter, she took on the role of packing the house up, etc. And I came back on R&R, signed some papers, moved my stuff into some storage and into a room into the mess. When I came back, the house had sold. And I still took me a long time to get through that grieving process. Never felt so lonely in my life when I came back. While I was out in Afghanistan, it was fine. I was busy. My mind was kept occupied with the work. Came back, I had 6 weeks leave. Never felt so miserable, lonely. And I was in the mess one night drinking. And I was drinking quite a bit. One of the blokes said, well, why don't you try internetdating.com? So I did. So the next few weeks I went out on a few dates, and that was that really. I got together with one young lady for a bit, I think it lasted about 18 months before that didn't last. And then I did another tour of Afghanistan, and when I came back off of that, I got together with the current, the Duchess, who was my best mate's wife. My best mate died a year and a day before Sandra. So we both had some real shit to deal with in our lives. And have I dealt with mine? I was all right until I came out. About 18 months, 2 years out after I left in 2018, and must have been just after lockdown. We done. Did we go around the UK? Yeah, just after we got back from going around the UK, I had a bit of a wobble, so I went to the doctor. Obviously, being a welfare officer, I knew what I was talking about. So I went to see the doctor. He offered me some drugs. I declined them. He offered me some counselling, so I accepted that. Counsellors were good. I saw 2 of them for about 4 or 5 times. Unfortunately, they didn't understand what was going inside my head. They didn't understand what I've seen. They were civvies. They just don't get it. And I managed to have a chat with a couple of mates, and got myself sorted out, and I'm still okay. So what I would say is, anybody that's going through problems, have a chat with people. Whether it's start with your doctor or start with your mates. Don't bottle it up. Got another little problem. When was it? It was a while back now. Must have been 2013, 14, somewhere about there. Had a blood test with a doctor. Had the old digit exam. Got to that age. Got a slightly enlarged prostate. And I thought it's normal getting up and down a couple of times in the night. Normally is. Anyway. So when I got referred on to urology, that's not a nice experience. However, it has to be done. They took me into East Surrey Hospital, and they couldn't find enough blokes to hold me down, so they had to put me out. And they did what they called prostate mapping, and they took, I think it was about 32 different samples off my prostate. Almost took it away. That really. And it come back, it's okay, but it's just, for some reason, it's inflamed. So what they do is they just monitor it. Every 6 months, they go and have a blood test. Piece of cake. I've got slightly high cholesterol. Again, just a blood test every 6 months. Oh no, it's once a year for that. And it was up slightly from the last time, but it's still nothing too much to worry about. Again, you don't feel anything with cholesterol. You don't know if stuff's going on until you have the blood test. But I'd encourage you to go and see your doctor, get it done. It's a piece of cake. And then the other thing is rheumatoid arthritis and osteoarthritis. Osteo's where your sort of joints are quite worn out. I mean, what I've done, I'm surprised anything's intact, but yeah. We've got some trouble with hips and knees, and I'm under the, what do you call them, orthopaedic surgeon for that. And I saw him a couple of months ago, had another look at the hips, and we're just going to monitor it for the time being while I'm managing the pain, while I'm able to get around okay. He said it's best to leave it until they get sort of bad, and then we can do it. You don't want to do it too early. So again, getting checked out for that. Now the other thing that really I struggle with is hearing. I am a little bit mutton, and that's due to, I mean, firing guns and stuff like that over the years. When I first started out, hearing protection wasn't really thought too much about. You had little green lug plugs when you went to the ranges. It's only recent years that they started using sort of the bigger Amplivox, but when you go on operations, you don't, or we didn't have that luxury. The last tour, I think they were starting to bring out these ones that fit into your ears, that you'll be able to hear normal conversations but block out loud noises. Didn't have any of those. And consequently, I got into a few firefights on my last tour and the tour before in 2006. And yeah, your ears are ringing. Nowadays, I've got tinnitus. And my tinnitus is, at the moment, really, really bad. I saw the tinnitus specialist last week. I saw him a few months ago. I've got to see him again in a couple of months' time. But imagine this constant noise, and there's no let up for it. And it can drive people suicidal. And I've had those suicidal thoughts, I really have. It just drives you to distraction. But again, it's trying to manage it. It's trying to find a distraction to take away the tinnitus. And it's worse at night. It's a real drama sometimes. When I take my hearing aids out, everything goes quiet apart from the tinnitus gets louder. And I've got an app where I can change the settings on my hearing aids, and I've got a couple of programs on there where I can have some noise to distract from tinnitus. There's one sort of sea sound, and there's one sort of white noise, which sort of kind of mimics the tinnitus, but not quite. But it is really debilitating. And if I take my hearing aids out, then I struggle at hearing what people are saying. If I go into a crowded room or a noisy environment, I might as well just switch off, because I can't hear what's going on. And it's really, really frustrating for that. And that has a detrimental effect on your mental well-being. But it's all about managing it. So my advice to anybody is, if you are suffering anything, particularly blokes find it really difficult to talk about stuff. If you're having a little bit of trouble with your walk works, might be nothing, but go and get it checked out. It's a little bit uncomfortable for a few seconds while you're getting the digit exam, but that's the start. If you're having trouble with getting up and down in the night, it might be nothing, but go and get it checked out. Like, I have lots of trouble with these maulers. And if you have a look, they're quite swollen up at the moment, but I go like that every day. My ankles swell up, and it's painful. All the time it's painful. It's pain in my back all the time. I get Brufen prescription, and I used to get the 600 milligram ones, and they were good. Only pop one of those or two of those, boom, it took away some of the pain. Now they've done away with the 600s. You can only get 400s, so I take 3 400s to have an effect. But there again, you've got to take something called a Lamprosol, which protects your stomach. Hi Katie, good evening. Just talking about some of my stuff. Hi Chris, hi Corinne. Yeah, I started off where I was on mute, so hopefully you didn't catch the mute. But what I'm trying to do is encourage people. If they don't feel right, go and get it checked out. And the sooner you get it checked out, the sooner something can be dealt with. That's the problem with blokes. They leave it and leave it and leave it until it's too late. And when it's too late, then it's too late, if you know what I mean. Can your tummy cope with the Brufen? Yeah, I take Lamprosol with it. And I have to, I pop the Lamprosol, and I take it, always have take it with biscuits or food. You just need to protect, because Brufen's great for giving you ulcers. Don't want to get ulcers. So what I'd take is the Lamprosol, which protects the stomach lining, and I take those as a daily take. Have one a day just to help the old stomach, along with all the handful of other pills that I have to take every day. So I'm on a statin. I'm on a what else I'm on? A statin, something called leflunomide, and that's for my rheumatoid. I was on methotrexate. Methotrexate's a funny old thing. It was all right. I didn't have too many problems with it, but you have to have a blood test every week when you're taking these things. And what it does, it can attack the old liver. But I was on the methotrexate for about 18 months or so, and then they started me off on a leflunomide with it, and then weaned us off the methotrexate, and now I just take the leflunomide once a day. Occasionally I get flares, and they call them flares, and that's when your joints swell up and added pain, basically. So pop Brufen to help that as well, and that generally works. So what the point I'm trying to get over is, I, like many people, have health issues, and it's really and part of the problem is military. Being in the military, you get this mindset where you get on with it. You don't. Well, most soldiers moan anyway, but that's part of being a soldier. But it's that mindset of getting on with it. That's what it's really about. Is that ability to just get on with it. And sometimes, I mean, in the morning's a nightmare. You're trying to get out of bed in the first thing, and then getting in and have a shower. Can't have a bath because I can't get in and out of the bloody thing. And then I struggle at putting my socks on and putting my shoes on. So and getting each leg in the pants. So occasionally she has to help. Oh, it's embarrassing, but it's part of life. It's part of that old rich tapestry. But there you go. I've got ulcers from aspirin. See, Lamprosol, but they protect your guts. I don't know what happens once you've got ulcers. Is there a way of getting rid of them? Stop taking aspirin? But I suppose aspirin you need to sort of for the blood and all that. Anyway, I've rattled on for a little bit tonight. The reason I had to do it tonight is because my guests, for some reason, haven't turned to. Occasionally it happens, which is a real shame. We were going to be talking about PTSD and what was it? Sex, drugs, and Jesus. But unfortunately, it didn't turn to. So maybe we'll get them back in another time. So I'm going to pull the pin on this now. Thank everybody for joining, for getting in the conversation. Hopefully I haven't given you too many nightmares. I have enough trouble with my own. So until next week for over on the quiz channel, going to have a great quiz for you next week. And next week I've got another guest lined up to come on the show. Hopefully they'll turn to, and we'll have that conversation next week. So until then, this is me from the old Live Hill Manor. There was, I am a best-selling author. Did you know that? I just plugged the book, Podmatch Host Mastery. I'm one of the 16 experts on Podmatch for. I'm one of the last year for 4 months straight. I was #1 host on Podmatch. No mean feat, trust me. I've dropped down. I'm in the top 1% still, but it's a challenge to keep up that sort of momentum. But if you want to find guests for your shows, if you want a guest on shows, there's another one that's Guest Mastery on Podmatch. Podmatch is a great resource for finding people for all sorts of stuff. Take care, Tim. Great to hear you again. Thank you, Katie. It's great meeting you again. Mate, great meeting you at the podcast fest or the podcast show. So got mine like a sieve. So until next week, then, TTFN, ta-ta for now. Boom. Let that run, and where's my finish button?